Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to session What's New in the OSMF V2R3. I'm Joey from the OSMF development team. I have been working for the OSMF for about 6 years. I developed 3 OSMF plugins, including the OSMF WM configuration workflow and the new ZOS operator console plugin. So the OSMF follows continuous delivery mode. So we ship new functions almost every quarter. So I do have some new functions to share with you today. If you have any question during the session, please feel free to interrupt me. Okay. So I will have a brief introduction about what's the OSMF first, and then I will walk you through the OSMF V2R3 updates at September last year, December last year, and January this year. Okay, so firstly, what's the OSMF? IBM ZOS Management Facility is a product designed for simplification and modernization of ZOS management. So we provide browser-based management interface for ZOS management. So it means that our customers don't have to install any client application. So today, the OSMF not only provides more than 10 plugins with UI, but also provides a number of REST APIs to make ZOS more approachable. So this is the stack of the OSMF. We are managing ZOS from ZOS because you don't have to install any code in client side. So our UI code is running in browser. In the back end, we use WebSphere Liberty as the application server. So we have several ZOSMF plugins serving for different areas. In general, ZOSMF requires TCP/IP, ZOS CEA component, SAF interface, and also Java. So the minimum Java version required by ZOSMF V2R3 is Java 8. So that's kind of brief about what's ZOSMF. So now I will walk you through V2R3 updates. So first of all, let's check out the V2R3 release, which was delivered at September last year. So this is a list of new functions we delivered in September last year. So first of all, let's check out the OSMF Auto Start, which was also introduced in the earlier session, the OSMF V2R3 implementation and configuration, because that's the major new function which impacts the OSMF configuration. So may I know how many of you attended this earlier session? Could you please raise your hand? Okay, so you can have a short break. Okay. So for those who didn't join this session, you can still download handouts from Xiao website for details of the OSMF V2R3 configuration. So first of all, what is the OSMF Auto Start? In ZOS V2R3, the OSMF is started automatically during IPL. So this behavior, we call it as the OSMF Auto Start. So this intends to make the OSMF available as soon as system is up. So why we are doing this? Previously, we had feedback from exploiters of the OSMF saying that they have concern to utilize the OSMF function because they don't know if the OSMF is running or not. So with the OSMF Auto Start in V2R3, our exploiters of the OSMF can depend on the OSMF function. So for example, JS2 email delivery service calls the OSMF REST API to send email notification in ZOS V2R3. And in addition, we also introduced some mechanism to help our exploiters to discover the OSMF status programmatically. So now let's check out some major concepts of the OSMF Auto Start. So first of all, in V2R3, the OSMF can be started as one of the 2 types which are auto start the OSMF and standalone the OSMF. So auto-start ZOSMF is designed specifically for exploiters of ZOSMF. So for example, when auto-start ZOSMF is up or down, it issues ENF83 signal to notify exploiters of ZOSMF. And also it updates global storage to reflect current status of ZOSMF and its URL. So this behavior is not supported by standalone ZOSMF. And the second difference is that we only allow one auto-start ZOSMF be active, for one auto-start group. So for standalone ZOSMF, there is no such restriction. And the third difference is that the ZOSMF instance started during IPO is always auto-start ZOSMF, because the auto-start behavior itself is designed for helping our exploiter. Okay? So those are the three differences between auto-start ZOSMF and standalone ZOSMF. So we use parameter values of ZOSMF server procedure to control whether ZOSMF is started as auto-start ZOSMF or standalone ZOSMF. So we will talk about this later, okay? So the next concept I'd like to introduce is auto-start group. So in definition, it's a set of systems that is served by one auto-start ZOSMF. So as I mentioned earlier, only one auto-start ZOSMF can be active in the same auto-start ZOSMF group. And because ZOSMF is syspass scope, so typically, one auto-start group should be sufficient for one syspass. Okay? And one auto-start group also shares one auto-start group name. So that's the definition of auto-start group. Okay, if you have any question, feel free to interrupt me. Yeah, question.
So if I got one ZOSMF for my syspass, right? And this ensures that. What happens when I do a rolling IPL and I take down the LPAR that ZOSMF is running on? Is there some function in there that will allow to start another one? It's on a different LPAR, or do I have that automation take care of that?
Okay. So actually, this question was also asked in the earlier session. So the answer is that we don't have such function to automatically restart the auto-start ZOSMF. However, you might be able to utilize, the automation tool to, implement that.
And that would be a standalone ZOSMF, right?
You can start auto-start ZOSMF at any time after IPO. It's only controlled by the parameter value you pass to ZOSMF server procedure. Okay, so now let's check out the setup of ZOSMF auto-start. So first of all, as usual, you need to ask a few questions for your planning. So the first question you need to ask is that, do you want to have auto-start ZOSMF in your syspass? So as I mentioned earlier, auto-start ZOSMF eases our exploiter, and also just2 email delivery service depends on auto-start ZOSMF. So if the answer is yes, you need to ask a few more questions. So first question is that how many auto-start groups you want for your syspass. So typically one auto-start group should be sufficient. And the next question you need to ask is that which system in the auto-start group you want to run the auto-start ZOSMF. So you might not care about which system runs the auto-start ZOSMF, so the configuration could be a little different. And the next question is that, do you want your IPL process to start auto-start ZOSMF, or you prefer using your existing way to run the auto-start ZOSMF? So that's the third question. And if you don't want to have auto-start ZOSMF in your syspass, then you need to understand that the just2 email delivery service, which is the new function of ZOS V2R3, cannot be used. And it's also hard especially for ZOS native programmers, programs to discover the status of the OSMF and also, utilize the OSMF REST APIs. So now assume that you have got the answers for your planning questions. Then let's check out the real setup of AutoStart. So first of all, from PalmLab perspective, we added a few new PalmLab options for the OSMF PalmLab. So the first two options are Angel proc and Server proc. So these two options tells IPL process where is my ZOSMF Angel procedure and where is my ZOSMF server procedure. Okay? And the next option I'd like to talk about is AutoStart. So it has two possible values, local and connect. Local indicates that the IPL process should start the AutoStart ZOSMF, for this local ZOS system. And connect indicates that the IPL process should not start the ZOSMF for this ZOS system. Instead, it should connect this ZOS system with AutoStart group. So with this option, AutoStart, you can control which ZOS system should start the AutoStart ZOSMF during IPL. Okay? The next option I'd like to talk about is AutoStart group. So if you are using AutoStart local, then the value for AutoStart group tells our program that the AutoStart ZOSMF should serve which group. And if you are using AutoStart connect for your IPL process, then the value of this AutoStart group option tells our program which group this ZOS system should connect with. Okay. And by the way, changing the value of AutoStart group requires the re-IPL. Okay. So the last new option in V2R3 I'd like to talk about is user directory, which indicates the mount point of the OSMF data file system. So if you plan to use AutoStart the OSMF during IPL, apparently you also need to ensure that the OSMF data file system is mounted at this mount point before the OSMF is started. Right. So as you can see, these PalmLab options controls the behavior of the OSMF AutoStart during IPL. So you need to tell IPL process which ZOSMF PalmLab member to be used. So this is done by specifying IZU equals 2 statement in IES's PalmLab. Okay? So that's all the changes related with AutoStart from PalmLab perspective. Yes, question?
Do you have a recommendation as to how people should set it up?
So the question is, do we have a recommendation for people to set this up? So we have some slides, to describe the typical scenario and the corresponding setup. So we will talk about this later. Okay. Yeah, question?
If the LPAR that we choose to be the best candidate for ZOSMF is not one of the first LPARs up, what impact is that going to have on ZOSMF? Talking to other systems, is it just going to make it not available until that LPAR is up?
Yeah, so as far as I understand, the question is that if my LPAR, which went to run the AutoStart ZOSMF, is not the first LPAR, complete IPL, does that also work, right? So the answer is yes. So with specifying AutoStart local for that system, you want to run AutoStart ZOSMF, and also connect for the other systems. You can control only the system you want to run the AutoStart ZOSMF. And once the system is complete IPL and started the AutoStart ZOSMF, all the rest systems will connect to the AutoStart ZOSMF. Okay, any other question? Okay, so In order to support the OSMF auto start, the OSMF server procedure is also enhanced. So as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, so there are two types of the OSMF server, auto start and standalone. So the OSMF instance started during IPL is always auto start the OSMF. However, that doesn't mean that you have to auto start the OSMF in IPL. So actually, we use the server parameter, of the OSMF server procedure to control whether the OSMF should be started as auto start the OSMF or standalone the OSMF. So the default value for this parameter is auto start. So that means you can still use start IZU SVR1 to, just like what you did before, to auto start the OSMF after IPL. Okay. And we also enhanced the value range for the OSMF PalmLab suffix in our server procedure. So we support previous and syspalm. So syspalm means that we always use the OSMF PalmLab suffix specified in IESs. The default value is previous, such that you don't have to specify the OSMF PalmLab suffix every time when you start the OSMF. Okay. So now let's talk about exploiter's perspective, because as I mentioned earlier, the auto start the OSMF intends to help exploiter. So if you are exploiter, when your program is started, you can go to global storage to check out the current status of the OSMF. So if the OSMF is already up, the OSMF REST APIs should be ready for use. And from now on, you can listen for ENF83 signal or periodically query global storage, to monitor the status of the OSMF. And by the way, you can, as a ZOS native program, you can also utilize ZOS Client Web Enablement Toolkit to consume the OSMF REST APIs. So if the OSMF is done when your program is started, then you can monitor the OSMF status change by also listening for this event or periodically query global storage. Okay. So to help you understand the setup needed for auto start, I'd like to also talk about some typical scenario and corresponding setup. So the first scenario is most common scenario, which is set up one auto start the OSMF for the entire sys+. So we have 4 systems in the same sys+, and you can share the same setup for all of these systems. So we use auto start local, and auto start group is IZU default. So although all the systems says that auto start local, which means start the OSMF during IPL process, the OSMF has some mechanism to ensure that only the first system which complete IPL to get the auto start the OSMF running. All the other systems will transfer to connect mode. So that's not a problem. And because local and IZU default are both default values for these 2 PalmLab options, so if you are using this setup, you don't have to change the OSMF PalmLab. Okay. The last thing I'd like to talk about for this scenario is that because in this scenario, you are not sure which system will auto start the OSMF. So you need to ensure the OSMF data file system is mounted at a shared mount point, which is accessible by all the systems in the sys+. Okay. So the second scenario is that you don't need have auto start the OSMF at any system in your sys+. So in this case, you can utilize this PalmLab setup for all the systems. So you use connect for auto start, so all of the systems will not start the OSMF during IPL. And you also use never use the name for the value of auto start group so that it doesn't impact other auto start group. Okay. The last scenario I'd like to mention is that you do need auto start the OSMF. However, you don't want IPL process to start the OSMF. You want to have your own way to auto start the OSMF. So if that's the case, then you can utilize auto start connect for all of your systems and use the valid name as the group value. And then you can continue using your existing command to start the auto start the OSMF. Because as I mentioned earlier, the default value for server parameter is auto start. Right. So that's 3 typical scenarios I'd like to talk about. So Xiao, is that helpful for the recommended? Yeah. Okay. Okay, I guess that's all about auto start. So any other question before we move to next topic? Yeah, question.
Does this require ZOS 2.3?
Yeah. So the question is, does that require OSMF v2r3, right? So ZOS 2.3. Yes, it requires ZOS 2.3. Well, if you have multiple releases, you can group the v2r3 ZOS systems in one auto start group. So it will not impact ZOS, the traditional OSMF in all the release. Okay, so if no other question, let's talk about the next new function of OSMF v2r3. So previously, before OSMF v2r3, OSMF ships the WebSphere Liberty in OSMF file system, which means as part of OSMF. So in v2r3, ZOS also ships WebSphere Liberty. So started from ZOS v2r3, OSMF use ZOS embedded Liberty. So we don't use OSMF embedded Liberty anymore. And also, with OSMF auto start at IPL in v2r3, because we are using ZOS embedded Liberty, you also need to ensure the ZOS embedded Liberty is mounted before OSMF is started. Okay. So the next thing is also related with usage of Liberty. So before this level of Liberty, exploiters of Liberty such as OSMF, KC4Z, or ZOS Connect must share one angel process in one LPAR. So this could cause usability and serviceability issue because, for example, if you want to restart the angel process, it will impact all of these exploiters. So starts from this level of Liberty. Liberty supports running multiple angel process in one LPAR as long as they have their own angel name. So we call it as named angel. So OSMF also started to support named angel from v2r3. However, in v2r3 release at September last year, we use hardcode value IZU-ANG1 for the named angel used by OSMF. So in December last year, we shipped a PTF supports customizing named angel used by OSMF. So we will talk about this later. Okay. Now the next new function I'd like to talk about is one of the 2 brand new plugins we roll out in v2r3. So it is ZOS Operator Consoles plugin, which provides browser-based interface for you to work with ZOS console. So I will walk you through these UI operations. And besides of UI operation, ZOS Operator Console plugin also provides REST API, allow your program to work with ZOS console. So I will also introduce the REST API later. Okay. So once you open ZOS Operator Console from navigation tree, you will see a table. So this table displays all the local systems in your local sysplash. So the third column is console summary view, which intends to deliver a summary view. So basically, it's the trend of console messages you received for each system. So we will also see this summary view later. So you can start a console from this table, and then you will see this panel. So the bars on the top is the console summary view I mentioned just now. So the x-axis of this graphic is the timeline, and the y-axis is the number of messages you received at a specific time. So if you hover over a specific message bar, we display the time, the number of messages by color, and the total number of messages at this specific time. Okay. So by the way, you can also scroll left for the earlier time and scroll right for the latest time. So this is also straightforward. So this mockup shows how the message bar looks like. So it contains different colors, and you can see how much messages by color received in a specific time. Okay. So the second part of this panel is the console view. So this console view displays all the messages you received. So you can scroll up and scroll down. Okay. And as a console panel, of course, you can issue command in this panel. So in the bottom, you can enter your command here, and you can click enter or click the submit button to issue the command. So as you can see that we support historic commands. So we support maximum 100 commands per each user. And also type association based on historic commands is also supported. So for example, if you enter D, all historic commands started with D will be displayed in this list. And you can choose one from the list. Okay. Search function is also supported by this plugin. So you can enter keywords in this input box. So we support search up and search down. And also there is a tooltip text, tells you, how many records we found, contains your keyword. And we also support highlight all to, circle all the found records, in blue box. Okay. Filter function is also supported for this plugin. So you can filter messages by different conditions, such as by time, by system name, job name, message content, or even message color. So these conditions can be combined. So in our screenshot, we filter messages by red color. So only red messages will be displayed in the console view. Okay. Another good function for this plugin is that we support automatically display the message help, which depends on KC4Z lookat function. So once you complete the setup for KC4Z lookat function, in the console view, when you hover over the message ID, we can have a pop-up dialog displays the message help for this specific message ID. Okay. The last UI operation I'd like to mention is that retrieve historic messages from either oplog or syslog. So by definition, the historic messages means that the messages happened before you start console from the OSMF. So this line differentiates the messages we retrieved from oplog or syslog and the messages received by the console started by the OSMF. Okay. So that's all the UI operations I'd like to mention for the OS Operator Console plugin. So besides of UI operations, we also support REST APIs. So the first REST API, of course, is issue command. So to issue command through REST API, you just need to issue HTTP put method to this URL. So we support a number of parameters. The first important parameter is CMD, which is the place where you specify the command you want to issue. And the second important parameter is async. So this parameter specifies whether you want to issue command asynchronously or synchronously. So this is an example. So assume that you want to issue command display address space Pegasus, synchronously. You can specify the command for the CMD field, and then you issue put method. So in our screenshot, we also utilize the solicited key field. So this field is used to specify the keyword we can help you to find from the command response. So in this case, the HTTP response contains the command response. So as we found the keyword Pegasus from the command response, which is here, so we also return you solicited key detected as true. Okay? So if you want to issue command asynchronously, we will directly return you the command response URL. So this URL looks like this. And you can use the URL to retrieve the command response at any time. So this URL is specifically for issue command asynchronously. Okay. Now let's check out this scenario. So sometimes the command result is not determined by the command response. Some command doesn't even has command response. So usually we monitor the unsolicited messages from the console to determine if the command has been successfully executed or not. So our REST API also offers similar solution. So when you issue command, you can utilize unsolicited key field. So with using this field, you can specify which keyword you want us to monitor unsolicited message. So once you issue command, we will start monitoring the unsolicited message. And we will return you a URL, which is used to query the detection result. So this URL looks like this. And when you call this URL, if the specified keyword has not been found from unsolicited messages, we will return you waiting status. And if we have found the specified keyword, we will return you the status as detected. And also, we will return you the message which contains the specified keyword. Okay. So that's 3 REST APIs I'd like to talk for ZOS Operator Console plugin. So now from setup perspective, to see this new plugin, you need to make sure your user has read access to this resource. And also each user of ZOS Operator Console plugin needs a few more security setup, which is described in the sample job IZU GCSec. So that's all I want to share about for the first new plugin, the ZOS Operator Console. So any question about that before we, yeah.
So you need access to those SAS profiles to get access to using the console. Then are the console commands still then restricted through those individual SAS processes based on user ID? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that all correlated together?
Yeah, so the question is that we need to have some security setup to allow user to use console, and we should also be able to control the command authorization the specific user can enter. So the answer is yes. So basically we utilize EMCS console undercover. So all the required security setup needed by EMCS console also applies for our console. Yeah. Okay. So if no question, let's check out the second new plugin, SysPath Management, which intends to simplify and modernize SysPath management tasks. So in V2R3, our SysPath Management plugin starts with providing a number of read-only views. So when you open SysPath Management plugin, the first view you will see is the SysPath topology view. So this view displays which SysPath you are managing, which CF and systems belong to which specific SysPath. And if there are any reason that we cannot retrieve the information from XCF, then there will be an arrow displayed in the SysPath. So besides of this graphic view, we also provide the table view, which is under the graphic view. Right? So you can utilize the highlighter function to customize the background color for different instances, such as CF systems or SysPath. Okay. So if you right-click on the SysPath, we allow you to view properties. So if you click that, we will display the SysPath details view. So this view contains the active policies, the couple data sets, the systems, and the CFs for these specific SysPaths. So most of the names are displayed as link so that you can get further information by clicking the link. So for a specific SysPath, we support to display the SysPath by physical view. So this physical view tells you that which CPC are in this SysPath and which systems and CF belongs to which CPC. And we also display the volumes on which the couple data set is located. So if there are any potential failure of single point failure, then we will also display the warning icon near to the couple data set. Okay. And if you right-click on the SysPath, you can also choose to open structures by coupling facility or by different structure type. So this is the view by coupling facility, and this is the view which displays the structures by different type. So you can also utilize highlighter function to customize the background for different type of structure. And if you click the name of the structure, we also displays the structure details view. Okay, so for SysPath, we also support the CF connectivity view. So this graphic view displays how many physical connections and how many internal connections exist for one SysPath. So if you click the number on the line, we will open the coupling facility connectivity details view, which displays each individual link between system and the coupling facility. So we also provide the table view under the graphic view. So this displays all the details for each individual link. And also you can utilize highlighter function. Okay, and by the way, you can also utilize the export button to export every graphic view supported by SysPath Management plugin to a SVG image. Okay. So from setup perspective, SysPath Management plugin is an optional plugin. So in order to enable SysPath Management plugin, you need to update the OS, including a few security setup. And after that, you need to change the OSMF PalmLab to enable this optional plugin. Okay. So that's all about SysPath Management plugin. Now let's check out the next new function. So Workflow Framework allows you to streamline and automate the OS task. In the past couple of years, we keep enhancing the OSMF Workflow Framework. So in V2R3, we allows you to run workflow in remote SysPath. So in order to perform workflow in remote syspass, you need the proper setup in the OSMF systems task. So each syspass needs to have at least one OSMF instance running. And also you need to ensure the single sign-on is enabled to avoid the authentication issue across syspass. So once you have the proper setup in the OSMF systems task, then it's straightforward for you to utilize this function. When you create a workflow, there is a system drop-down list. So you can choose which system you want to perform this workflow when you create the workflow. Okay. So as usual, the OSMF keeps current with browser level. So in V2R3, we support the latest level of browsers, such as Edge from Microsoft and the latest level of Firefox ESR. And there are also some other enhancements in the OSMF V2R3. So the first thing is about the redesign of our logon panel. So if you open the OSMF URL, previously you can only see a small text which is logging in on the top right. So the login dialog can only be popped up when you find this login text and click that text. So in V2R3, we redesigned the first panel you will see when you open the OSMF URL. So this panel explicitly tells that you need to start with logon. Okay. And the second enhancement I'd like to talk about is that previously it requires manual operations outside of the OSMF if you need to customize header, footer, or your logo for the OSMF. So now in V2R3, we provide UI for you to do this customization from the OSMF. So basically, you just need to enter your header, footer, and the path for your logo in the OSMF UI. So the second thing which you need manual action, outside of the OSMF before is collecting the OSMF diagnostic data. So in the OSMF V2R3, we also provide UI for you to collect the OSMF diagnostic data. So we support collect the OSMF runtime and server log, as well as the OSMF server job log. So once you click export button, we collect all the diagnostic data and compress it in a zip file for you to download it to local workstation. Okay. So basically, that's all of the major updates I'd like to talk about for the OSMF V2R3 at September last year. So now, as I mentioned earlier, we almost deliver new functions every quarter. So in December last year, we delivered the first SPE on the OSMF V2R3. So first of all, we enhanced our REST ZOS dataset and file service. So REST ZOS dataset and file service is one of the most popular OSMF REST APIs. So it allows you to manipulate the ZOS datasets and Unix files via REST API. So with the first SPE on V2R3, we enhanced 4 operations as marked in blue color. So when you list ZOS datasets, we support you to return all the volumes if the dataset is multi-volume dataset. And also if you want to write data to ZOS dataset, so we support using Unix edit command such that you don't need to enter the whole content of dataset in the request body. So you can utilize the edit command to replace the content, such as utilizing regular expression. Okay. The third enhancement is that when you create a sequential dataset by using our REST API, we also support you to specify DSN type, which is not supported before. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that we support a number of conditions to help filter the result when you list files for a specific Unix file path. So you can combine these conditions. So for example, the mTime condition is used to specify only return entries, which you modified a specific time ago or after a specific time. And the size, parameter is used to return only entries that meet the size requirement. So there are many parameters we support for this API, so I didn't list them all in this place. Okay. So the next thing is that we removed the OSMF embedded liberty. As I mentioned in the beginning, the OSMF started to use ZOS embedded liberty. Therefore, the OSMF embedded liberty is no longer used. So we shipped a PTF in December last year to remove the content of the OSMF embedded liberty. So that saves about 72 megabytes for each individual OSMF instance. Okay. And also, IBM rolled out the container pricing for IBM Z at December last year. So OSMF WM was also enhanced to support setup WM-related policy for container pricing. Okay. So the next thing is that we support customizing named angel in December last year. So you can utilize this parameter, which is name, to control which named angel used by the OSMF angel process. And also we use the OSMF PalmLab option, angel proc, which is used to tell the OSMF server process which named angel server process should connect with. So that means you need to keep this value is the same with the value you specified for this PalmLab option. Right? And as usual, we keep current with Liberty version. So in December last year, we support the latest level of Liberty on V2R3. Okay. So right after December last year, in January this year, we delivered another, So we delivered another updates. So this is that roll back most the OSMF V2R3 enhancements to V2R2. So this is the list of new functions you can get from V2R2. And this is the APA number. So you can try out these V2R3 functions without having to migrate to the OSMF V2R3. Okay. So summary, we introduced the new functions in the OSMF V2R3 at September last year. So we talked about the OSMF auto start, which also impacts the OSMF configuration in V2R3. And we talked about the OSMF start to use the OS embedded liberty, which saves your storage space. And we introduced the two brand new OSMF plugins in V2R3. And also we keep enhancing workflow framework to support performing jobs, recs, and shell scripts in remote sysplus. As usual, we support latest browser levels in the OSMF V2R3. So December last year, we also made a list of enhancements, as you can see here. And 1 month ago, you can get most the OSMF V2R3 enhancements on V2R2. So that's all I want to share with you about the OSMF V2R3 updates. Okay. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that we still have a great session tomorrow. So you can try the OSMF V2R3 without having to configure the OSMF V2R3. So you just need to attend the OSMF hands-on lab session tomorrow. So we have a lot of topics for you to choose. Okay. So any other question before we end this session? Yeah, question.
This may be a JES2 question, but for the JES2 email function in 2.3, do you need to have or is it just sufficient to have an auto start?
Okay.
Are there functions that you have to do?
You mean, are there any functions you have to set up, right? Okay, so the question is that to enable just to email delivery service, are there any setup we need to do in the OSMF? So there are two parts of setup. The first part is that you need to ensure that you have auto start the OSMF. So that's already mentioned. And the second part of setup in the OSMF is that you need to set up SMTP server, which is used by the OSMF to send email notification for just two. So basically, that's all of the setup you need to do in the OSMF for just two email notification.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any other question? Okay, so if no other questions, thank you for joining this session.
Because we share. Because we share.